It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Our most productive meeting so far. The U.S. Secretary of State hails the progress made in Geneva in talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine.
I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done. But we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began this morning.
Talks continued into the night, the delegations having dinner together after a day of diplomacy, and there will be further meetings tomorrow. Also tonight, Israel kills a senior Hezbollah commander in its first airstrike on Beirut in nearly 6 months. Former Prime Minister David Cameron reveals he's been treated for prostate cancer as he joins calls for a targeted screening program on the NHS. A piece of history recovered from the deep. A gold watch belonging to one of Titanic's richest passengers fetches nearly £2 million at auction. In sport, Arsenal extend their lead at the top of the Premier League after thrashing North London rivals Tottenham Hotspur. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. Our best day in 10 months. That was the verdict of the U.S. Secretary of State tonight after talks with Ukrainian officials in Geneva aimed at ending the war. Marco Rubio would not be drawn on the details of the discussion, prompted by the controversial 28-point plan for peace that emerged last week. But he did say negotiators had made a tremendous amount of progress. There are no unsurmountable issues, and he believes the sides will reach an agreement. Well, diplomats and security officials spent the day in talks at Geneva's Intercontinental Hotel and the U.S. mission in the city. Leading the delegations, Marco Rubio, and President Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak. Alongside them, the national security advisors from Britain, Germany, France and Italy, and officials from the European Union. From Geneva, our international correspondent, John Sparks, reports.
From the Kremlin and their colleagues at the Defense Ministry, images of Russian drones and Russian troops in action in eastern Ukraine, accompanied by claims of territorial gains, part of their relentless assault now entering its fourth winter. While in Geneva, a different sort of contest was underway, Ukrainian officials shuttling from meeting to meeting under pressure to end the war. Donald Trump demanding major concessions as part of a 28-point plan. That 28-point document reportedly co-authored by this man, Steve Witkoff. Trump's envoy, he's taking a prominent role in the negotiations alongside the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. British and European officials are also involved, the worry that Witkoff is advancing Russian objectives.
This is high-stakes diplomacy on the fly. Different groups, Americans, Ukrainians, Europeans, meeting in different formats, in different locations across the city, with the main talks happening here at the US mission in Geneva. If it looks urgent, if it feels urgent, that's because it is. Donald Trump is losing patience, and the Ukrainians, for one, will have to work hard to keep him on side.
They need American support and weaponry, like defensive missile systems. Here in Sumy, homes and businesses were destroyed in another Russian bombardment. But as part of the 28-point plan, the Ukrainians would have to make substantial cuts to their military. In Geneva, they came armed with counter-proposals. And in a surprisingly upbeat assessment, Mr. Rubio said both sides were making progress.
It is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue. I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done. But we are much further ahead today at this time.
President Trump had given the Ukrainians a deadline on Thursday, but suddenly it didn't seem quite so pressing.
Whether it's Thursday, whether it's Friday, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's Monday of the following week, we want it to be soon.
If the two sides do come to an agreement, the proposal will be forwarded to the Russians. But Putin and friends don't seem very keen on making changes to the original plan.
I think this 28-point plan very good basis for the diplomatic negotiation, and it will be very good that it will be finally diplomatic solution.
We watched Mr. Rubio and Mr. Witkoff sit down to dinner, pleased no doubt about a major shift in mood. The Ukrainians seem willing to compromise, something Vladimir Putin has shown no inclination to do. John Sparks, Sky News in Geneva.
So no detail from the US Secretary of State, but a plan reportedly tabled by Ukraine's European allies this afternoon perhaps gives us an idea of what the negotiators discussed. Well, among the proposals, a security guarantee for Ukraine from the United States that mirrors NATO's Article 5, which states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. Ukraine would not be allowed to recover its occupied territory through military means, and negotiations on territorial swaps would begin at the present front line. The Ukrainian military would be capped at 800,000, but only in peacetime. According to the US plan, that cap would be 600,000, even in times of war. And NATO would not permanently station its troops in Ukraine in peacetime. Ukraine would be compensated financially through Russian assets, which would remain frozen until compensation had been paid. And Ukraine would hold elections as soon as possible after the signing of any peace agreement. More now from John Sparks in Geneva on where this process goes next.
We've witnessed a day of determined and frantic diplomacy in this city. Camera crews on the street corners, long convoys of black vehicles driving down the thoroughfares as the Ukrainians work hard to keep the Americans on side. Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, he sounds happy. He says they've made real progress today. And Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian leader, he sounds happy as well. He says Trump's team is hearing us. And that's important because it suggests the Americans are showing some flexibility. They're not treating their 28-point peace plan as a fait accompli. They're here to talk about it. But we're still a long way from the finishing line here. If the two sides come up with a peace proposal that they agree on, it would then have to go to the Russians, and it's at that point that the negotiations could get very tough indeed. And that is why the Ukrainians need the Americans to stay on side.
Israel has killed a senior Hezbollah commander in its first airstrike on the Lebanese capital Beirut in nearly 6 months. 5 people were reportedly killed in the attack, with the Israeli Prime Minister saying his country would not allow the militant group to rebuild its forces. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons reports.
For the first time in nearly 6 months, Israel attacked a site in Beirut. Their target, a very senior member of Hezbollah, Haytham Ali Tababi, the group's chief of staff. Lebanon says 5 people were killed in the attack, but Israel claims it had no choice, saying Hezbollah is rearming and taking its orders from Iran. The Prime Minister completely unapologetic.
The Israel Defense Forces eliminated Haytham Ali Tababi, Hezbollah's terror organization chief of staff. He is a mass murderer. His hands are filled with the blood of many Israelis and Americans. And, not without reason, the United States offered a $5 million prize over his head. He was a senior in the Radwan force. This is the force that planned to take over the Galilee and slaughter many of our citizens.
The attack was planned by senior figures in the Israeli military who watched it unfold. They insist their focus is on protecting Israelis living near the border, the people who had to flee when Hezbollah attacked 2 years ago. But the strike was condemned by the Lebanese government, who say Israel is ignoring the year-long ceasefire and is out of control.
This is definitely a civilian area and void of any military presence. Here in the heart of the southern suburbs, especially the neighbourhood where we stand. We continue in our steadfastness in the face of the Israeli enemy, and we tell the Israeli enemy that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. We are strong.
It is almost exactly 12 months since the ceasefire stopped fighting between Hezbollah and Israel, and now it is under strain. Israel has already hinted it may attack again. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
The former Prime Minister Lord Cameron has revealed that he was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year. He's been treated successfully and has now joined calls for a national screening programme on the NHS. Well, John Craig is live in Westminster this evening for us. John, what else do we know?
I know that Lord Cameron and his wife Samantha were listening to a radio interview with the Soho House founder, that's Nick Jones, about his diagnosis and treatment. And Samantha said to him, "You've got to go and get a test." So he did. And of course, it was positive, worryingly positive, he said. And now he's had the treatment. Now, he said he's decided to speak out because he says, "I've got a platform. I'd felt bad if I hadn't spoken out." He joins campaigners like Sir Chris Hoy, the Olympic cycling champion, former Sky News presenter Dermot Murnaghan, and indeed another former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, in now campaigning for a national screening service. And the timing of Mr Cameron's announcement, which was in an interview here in the House of Lords with the Times, is significant because the government's own National Screening Committee is due to meet this Thursday, and there is wide speculation that they may give the go-ahead for a national screening service on the National Health Service. He talks, Lord Cameron, in his interview about the treatment he had, about how men don't like talking about their health and so on. It's a very personal interview, and he goes into some detail about the treatments he had. But then, right at the end, he reveals how he felt when he got the all clear. He said, when you see the picture on the bits you need to get rid of and the bits that are still okay, that you don't, that was a big relief. That was a great moment, he said. So this is a decisive moment in the campaign for a widespread prostate cancer screening. Big intervention, major public figure, former Prime Minister, and there is talk of a breakthrough later this week.
John Craig with the latest from Westminster. John, thank you. A woman who died in Swindon on Friday night has been named as Sarah Forrester. Miss Forrester, who was 55, worked as a counselling coordinator for the mental health charity, the Kelly Foundation, which described her as an incredible person who was devoted to her two young children. A 13-year-old girl who was arrested on suspicion of murder has been released on bail. Police say they are not looking for anyone else. A man has been filmed being rescued by a drone in Vietnam, where flooding and landslides have killed at least 90 people. Heavy rains caused widespread destruction, leaving railway lines and roads submerged and thousands stranded. There's been more than 6 feet in rainfall in some parts of central Vietnam over the past week. West Midlands police have defended the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans for their match against Aston Villa earlier this month, following claims that the decision was based on false intelligence. The Sunday Times reported claims about Maccabi's fans' conduct in Amsterdam last year, set out in a document used to justify the ban, were rejected by Dutch police. Well, there's just a few days to go until the budget, when the Chancellor will set out her plans to fill a multi-billion-pound hole in the nation's finances. As always, it's been subject to intense speculation, with measures briefed out and some even retracted. But one policy seems sure to be announced when Rachel Reeves gets to her feet on Wednesday. That's the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. John Craig reports.
In the city where Rachel Reeves is an MP, these football fans are just as concerned about Wednesday's budget as they are about their team's fortunes in the Premier League.
I'm just very worried about it.
Anything to help Middle England, because we're the ones that pay for everything.
Allow child benefit and child credit for all the children that people have.
The Chancellor says she'll take action in the budget to ease the cost of living. There'll be another attempt to reform welfare and a freeze on income tax thresholds, but an end to the two-child benefit cap.
Tackling child poverty is in the DNA of the Labour Party. Nobody wants to see kids going without, and we know that 3/4 of children who are living in poverty at the moment are in working households, and growing up in poverty has consequences that last a lifetime.
The Conservatives want major cuts in welfare and say too many people are on benefits.
I want to see the Chancellor stand up and explain how she is going to control public spending, particularly welfare, in order to make sure that we're not having to put up taxes, and she's not going to be breaking all those promises that she's made, yet again in order to get the economy moving and get business moving.
One way the government hopes to get the economy moving is a freeze on rail fares in England for the first time in 30 years.
This budget has been a long time coming. There's been speculation about its contents for several months. There was a U-turn on raising income tax, and the Bank of England has said that all the speculation has damaged economic growth.
As a result, despite the Chancellor promising to ease the cost of living, tax rises seem inevitable.
It looks like we're going to get some pretty chunky tax rises, maybe £30 billion. That's a lot of money, particularly on top of big tax rises a year ago. But given that it looks like the Chancellor isn't going to break her manifesto commitments on rates of income tax and so on, it's probably going to be a whole series of smaller changes, with one big one, which will be yet another extension to the freezes in income tax allowances and thresholds.
Leeds United lost, but the Chancellor, accused of own goals, desperately needs a win on Wednesday, as does her next-door neighbour in Downing Street, the Prime Minister. John Craig, Sky News.
Members of the congregation at the Heaton Park Synagogue say they still don't feel safe, nearly 2 months on from the attack in which 2 people were killed. Our North of England correspondent, Katie Barnfield, has been speaking to the chairman of the synagogue, who was on security that day and helped to ensure that the attacker did not get inside.
Last month, terror came to their gates. Now, inside the Heaton Park Synagogue, those who witnessed the attack say the fear is still with them.
It's difficult, really, to say you feel safe as such. You know, we're still in. It's still quite raw.
I mean, the fact is, we're sat in a synagogue behind gates with security guards, and the fact that that is required is a real moral failing.
Alan Levy is the synagogue chairman. One of those who barricaded the doors to stop Jihad al-Shami getting through. He recalls how one of the victims, Adrian Dolby, leapt up from these seats to help him, even though it cost him his life.
Adrian used to sit on the back row, about 3 seats in, I think, on the back row near that corner. I mean, that's why when I came running in to shout, make sure the back doors and all the windows are locked, Adrian went and made that door was actually open. Adrian, that back door there, Adrian was the one who got up and actually locked that door and then ran the whole length, as you can see, to come and help barricade the doors. And even when I come in now and look and I don't see Adrian sat there, it makes me sad.
The synagogue opened to people from all faiths for Mitzvah Day, a yearly event focused on helping those in need. Organiser Geraldine says the support they've received from the local community has helped them rebuild.
A lady had knitted 2 baby items and she sent a note, tell the mother every stitch was knitted with love. And that is an example of other outpourings of love and support. It's very, very important to us.
But there's still a feeling in this congregation that even after they were targeted, anti-Semitism has been left to grow unchecked.
It was hoped that the attack would be some sort of line in the sand, but it became apparent very quickly that that probably would not be the case. We need Jewish people to be believed now.
A day for the members of this synagogue to reach out and to reflect on the moments that changed it forever. Katie Barnfield, Sky News in Manchester.
Hundreds of people from the US and Europe are moving to Russia because they think their own countries have become too woke. Vladimir Putin's shared values visa has proved to be a hit with Westerners who are against LGBT rights, which are non-existent in Russia. Our Moscow correspondent Ivor Bennett met a family who've made the move from Texas.
But here I am, living the dream.
Leo Hare and his family describe themselves as moral migrants. Americans who relocated to Russia in search of salvation. We met them at their new home in Ivanovo, 150 miles from Moscow. It's a big change from Texas, but change is exactly what Leo and wife Chantel wanted.
We were noticing a great upsurge in LGBT
type policies coming into the government, especially the school system.
This is a complete demonic attack against the conservative Christian families, and we will not stand for this.
There's no risk of that in Russia, where so-called LGBT propaganda is banned.
There are laws that say, no, you can't just run wild and have gay pride parades and dance in front of all the children. You can't do this, okay? I like this, and anybody who's straight will kind of say, okay.
We feared for our children's future.
The family of 5 arrived 2 years ago, not knowing a word of Russian. And they were granted political asylum in a ceremony covered on state TV.
I feel like I've been put on an ark of safety for my family, and it's very important. Thank you so much.
And they're not the only ones who have made the move. Moral migration is on the rise.
In the past year, Russia says more than 2,000 Westerners have applied to live here on what's called a shared values visa. It was introduced by Vladimir Putin for those who think the West has become too woke. Most Western expats, of course, left Russia after its invasion of Ukraine nearly 4 years ago. But now, some are being drawn here despite it.
Philip Hutchinson was a Conservative Party candidate in last year's local elections in Britain. He now lives in Moscow, running a company that helps others to relocate here.
Well, every week we get 50 to 80 inquiries. We get a lot of them.
From Britain?
From the UK, yeah. There's a huge amount of people that are frustrated by the way the country's going, and taxes keep going up and up and up. And we're giving all this money to Ukraine, but we can't even feed our own people at home.
You mentioned there's a war going on. Does that bother people? Does that bother you?
Look, it doesn't. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not here to deal with politics.
But is politics at play here?
Are officially on Russian soil for the first time.
Many new arrivals post videos about how wonderful their new life is.
It's unlike anything you can see in America. It's absolutely amazing.
Derek Huffman, who moved with his family from Arizona, has even joined the Russian army and become a citizen.
Russian citizen.
A Russian citizen. I've had a communication with a family like this.
But Moscow insists this isn't a PR campaign.
We don't give any social security guarantee or any free housing or any free breakfast here. So people come on their own with their own money, own families, on their own expense.
So it's not a recruitment campaign?
Absolutely not.
Zeka, would you pick a drink that's going to be good?
Not everyone's had a positive experience. The Hares say they were scammed out of $50,000 by the family who initially put them up. And their 2 oldest sons have returned to America because of problems finding a school.
Was it a mistake to move?
Moving so fast, probably. At times, though, your pathway in life takes you places you wouldn't have willingly gone, but through God and providence, you are meant to go through this.
A bumpy path, but one they still believe is straight and narrow. Ivor Bennett, Sky News, Ivanova.
A gold pocket watch recovered from the body of one of the richest people on board the Titanic has fetched nearly £2 million at auction. The watch belonged to a first-class passenger who was immortalised in the Hollywood blockbuster about the 1912 disaster. Sky's Oliver Whitfield-Miocic reports.
A pocket watch with an incredible love story to tell. This golden timepiece, selling for almost £1.8 million, was used by Isidore Strauss, co-owner of Macy's department store in New York, who was travelling first class on the Titanic with his wife when disaster struck.
They were on the deck of the Titanic. The ship is sinking. Ellen Bird, the maid, gets on the lifeboat. Ida gets on the lifeboat. Isidore is encouraged to get onto the lifeboat. Obviously, he's an older guy. He says there is no way he is leaving when there are younger men on that ship and also when there are women and children. So Ida gets back out the lifeboat. She hands her fur coat that she's wearing to her maid to keep her warm and basically says to Isidore, we've been together this long, we're not leaving each other now. And action.
The romantic tale was immortalised in James Cameron's film adaptation, with the couple shown hugging tenderly on a bed as the ship sinks. 111 years later, the site of the shipwreck would be the scene of further family tragedy. Wendy Rush, direct descendant of the Strausses, is the widow of Stockton Rush, the owner of the ill-fated OceanGate submersible, which imploded during a dive to the Titanic in 2023.
Well, iconic is an often overused word, but it clearly is one of those points. There are certain people who were on Titanic which are cornerstones of the story. Isidore and Ida Strauss, as that selflessness at the end, is again one of those fundamental points of the story. And so having the pocket watch, which was found on Isidore's body, is this direct connection to those events and to what they did. And equally, of course, what they ultimately went through in the final moments of the sinking.
The watch was among several items sold at the auction in Wiltshire. A letter written by Mrs. Strauss on White Star Line stationery and posted while on board the ship fetched £100,000. More than a century on, the Titanic continues to grab the public's attention and the wallets of wealthy private collectors. Oliver Whitfield-Miocic, Sky News, London.
Let's get the latest sport now from Sky Sports News and James.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Okay. Are you ready? Yep.
35 prisoners were released from Barlini prison this morning, but only one left in a limousine.
Duncan spoke about the letters he's had when he was in prison, and that created a bond between Duncan and Everton.
It's not just words. I love them, and I'll always love them.
It's the story which has gripped Merseyside. Walter Smith's future on the line. The Everton boss apparently close to quitting over the multi-million-pound sale of captain Duncan Ferguson to Newcastle.
We were under pressure from the bank to get the overdraft down.
It upset me. You try to move on. It's not easy for me. I couldn't rub off my tattoo, could I?
The fans adore him. Then all of a sudden, a crash bang wallop. He's playing with the striped shirt on.
A fan had came into the training ground, burst into reception, sat herself on a seat and refused to move until Duncan Ferguson was re-signed.
It was a bit of shock once your club doesn't want you. Really, it's inevitable. You've got to move, haven't you?
What's signing for Rangers, Duncan?
It's brilliant.
It's not for you. Duncan.
I knew that when I signed for Rangers, that was explained to me that really it probably was a year too early for me, but because I was wanting to move away from Dundee United, Walter decided to sign me probably a year too early. He wanted to sign me really a year later. It was a bit early for me to break in.
Probably the best kid in Scotland at the time now. He broke into Dundee United team very early, established himself. Walter was building for the future and building a team, and Duncan was the ideal the prospect to get.
I mean, they were the best in the country. Two great strikers, Mark, big target man, and Ali, the smaller guy picking up the second ball and scoring all the goals. I mean, Mark chipped in a hell of a lot of goals as well. So it was very difficult for me to break into the team.
But certainly now Duncan found himself restricted in playing the position he wanted to play. And he found himself now playing different positions, wide and the right, wide and the left, which didn't really suit him.
It didn't quite work out for me. Injuries as well played a part, which played a part really through my career. Nothing was inevitable, but in the back of your mind you're thinking you maybe have to move on, I see myself as a quiet guy, never went looking for confrontation at all. Of course there's another little bit of side to me, wasn't there, off the field as well. Just as long as you don't break into my house, you're alright.
Nervous, Duncan? What do you think about the prospect of moving to?
When the incident just happened, I didn't think anything was going to happen, but of course then I heard the noise after again, so I knew something was up.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. When we come back, I'll be joined by The Spectator's deputy political editor, James Heal, and the journalist and author, Rachel Shabby. Welcome both. And among the stories, we will be discussing this on the front of the Financial Times about the ongoing Ukraine peace plan. Their headline, Trump rails at Kyiv and Europe amid doubts over U.S. stance on peace deal. We'll be right back.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with The Spectator's deputy political editor, James Heal, and the journalist and author, Rachel Shabby. First, let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, despite the news tonight that moves towards a Ukraine peace deal are progressing well, the Financial Times leads with Donald Trump's attack on European